Ladies and gentlemen, please be quiet for a moment while we begin the live stream.
Good. Like to welcome everybody. We are a volunteer board. Go easy on us. All right. We are the Historic Resources Preservation Board. This is a special meeting for WMOTA City Commission Chamber, Wednesday, July 16, 2025. Could I have a roll call, please?
Elaine DeRissa. Here. Laura Devlin. Here. Robert Dorenzo.
Here.
Nadine Heights.
Here.
Ed DeVoe.
Here.
Ed LeBlanc. You have a quorum.
Thank you. May we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any additions, deletions, reordering to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. Swearing in of staff and applicants.
This is only for the applicants and anyone planning to give testimony. Anyone who's planning on giving public comment need not swear in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and we don't have any withdrawals or postponements. It was public proof of publication. Any board disclosures? We're good there? Okay, new business. Why we are here.
All right. All right. So, as I'm sure you're all aware from the very lengthy and numerous staff reports you've got, we've really got three parts to this request tonight. All right, so we've got the rezoning, the plan development, and the certificates of appropriateness. So that is how we're going to break it down for tonight. For the record, I'm Annie Greening, Principal Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. So we are going to start with the rezoning. So this is a privately initiated zoning map amendment, also known as a rezoning, for the property commonly known as WMOTA, including 13 to 23 South M Street, 16 to 32 South L Street, 11 South L Street, and 30 South K Street. This is a rezoning of 11 parcels from mixed use east NUE to downtown DT. So here's a map of the current zoning. You can see the parcels that are relevant to this request outlined in yellow. They are currently MUE in that red color, and they are proposed to be rezoned to downtown, that light pink color. So existing conditions, just an aerial of the property. Like I said, this is going to rezone 11 parcels, which will be unified with two other parcels, 501 and 509 Lake Avenue, to create a mixed-use urban plan development. Those parcels on Lake Avenue are already in the downtown zoning district designation, and this would give a unified zoning district for the entire plan development. The parcels that are subject to this rezoning are currently either vacant, surface parking lots, or housing city departments. So again, there's not much to say with this. It would rezone the amended zoning district to DT. This is a portion of the concurrently proposed WMOTA plan development. The total area of that plan development would be about 2.254 acres, and approximately 1.78 acres are part of this rezoning. So staff analysis provided to you in the staff report is that the rezoning request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, strategic plan, and all rezoning criteria as applicable in LVR section 23.2-363. Therefore, we are recommending that you recommend approval to the City Commission for the zoning map amendment. So this is one of those elements that will not stop with you. It will go on to the City Commission for final approvals. So we've got draft motions here, but obviously we've got a lot more to go through before we get to any motions. So we'll come back to this if necessary. when it's time for a motion. So part 2 is the planned development. So this is a mixed-use urban plan development, development of significant impact, major site plan, 2 conditional use permits, one for a residential use over 7,500 square feet and one for a non-residential use for the museum, as well as sustainable bonus incentives, transfer of development rights, and affordable workforce housing program incentives. There's also associated right-of-way abandonments, but those do not require HRPB review. Those will be going to the City Commission concurrently with their first reading of the plan development. So this is a quick map of the development area and location. The teal colors are existing parcels. The kind of purplish pink sections are sections of right-of-way that are proposed to be vacated. So you were provided with the site plan. The site is configured with 2 buildings for phase 1, the 4-story museum fronting Lake Avenue, and a 5-story residential building with facades facing South L Street, South M Street, and First Avenue South. That residential building would house 110 residential units, including 102 market rate units and 8 workforce artist lofts. Resident amenities would include a pool, roof terraces, and additional amenity spaces, which would likely be used for a fitness center and lounge. Public amenities include a community art space in the residential building and an art walk or arts alley. Both terms have been used sort of interchangeably in between the 2 structures. Parking is primarily proposed beneath the residential structure. It would be an underground garage. There's also some ADA spaces behind the museum, as well as on-street parking. So a total of 213 spaces are required with the 25% parking reduction that is currently in the LDRs. 223 spaces are currently proposed, including bus parking, bike racks, and in-lieu parking in the city garage that is proposed. That in-lieu parking is part of existing downtown in-lieu parking provisions that are in our code and are open to any development in the downtown core area. There is a potential for the developer to request for some of the space on the 3rd floor of the museum to be used as a flex space, which may impact the parking calculations slightly. It would likely only increase the in-lieu parking spaces required by about 5 spaces. In the development agreement that they've already had with the City Commission, they had anywhere between 50 to 70 in-lieu spaces. They are requesting less than that currently and are requiring less than that currently. So it would not affect their overall development agreement or their obligations to the city. We also have this larger site to consider. Mostly, people have been considering the phase 1, understandably the museum and the residential building, but this is a larger phased plan development. So phases 2 and 3 are the cultural council lot that is behind their building right now. It's that open green space, as well as a CRA-owned lot at 30 South K Street. So the plan development as a whole is eligible for a total of 183 dwelling units, 155 units from the stacking of their base density and incentives, plus an additional 28 bonus affordable workforce housing units under our code. So both the CRA lot and the cultural council lot under this plan development will be vested for future residential development, including affordable workforce unit. The CRA lot is also exchanging affordable workforce units with market rate units for the phase 1 development. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the affordable housing section. So we're going to go through a couple of the architectural renderings just to give you guys a taste now. We'll go through more in the COA section. But this is a view of both buildings from the corner of Lake Avenue and South M Street. This subject site is located along both major thoroughfares A and C in the major thoroughfare design guidelines. The buildings are generally contemporary in design with visual references to the mid-century modern architecture. The structures share a design inspiration, but are not designed to be look-alike buildings. So this is a view looking south-southeast on South L Street, essentially viewing from that cultural council property. So you can see the residential building and some of the arts alley, as well as a teeny bit of the museum in the left side. So our primary exterior finishes are smooth stucco in multiple colors, metal panels, and reinforced concrete panels with a variety of painted and coated metal finishes for the building's windows, window shades, balconies, and canopies. Both buildings have flat roofs with screened mechanical equipment, and facades are recessed above the second story to align with zoning requirements and to visually mitigate the height of the buildings. So we've got just some of the main architectural elevations of the museum. We've got the front or north elevation on the top and the east elevation on the bottom. So you can see that their windows really emphasize horizontality, while the residential buildings' windows are more vertical. On top here is the rear elevation, and on bottom is the west elevation. Staff had previously expressed concerns to the applicants about the expansive blank facade on this west elevation, so they have proposed a mural to bring some visual interest and help mitigate that lack of architectural features. Like any other mural, that would come back to you guys when the actual design is proposed for your approval. So we've got our residential elevations. Again, on top is the west elevation, and on bottom is the south elevation. So that west elevation faces South L Street, and the south elevation faces First Avenue South. The residential building, even more so than the museum building, includes visual breaks in the primary facades to give a feeling of not a single bulky building on the property. So they've got changes in color, changes in balconies and recesses, differences between arched and non-arched openings in 25 and 50-foot increments, as that's the development lot size in most of Lake Worth Beach. And so here we've got the east and north elevations. So again, in your staff report, we had all of this discussion of consistency with city plans. So it is consistent with and supported by a number of city plans, including but not limited to our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, our mobility plan, as well as the CRA redevelopment plan and the arts cultural master plan. So I do want to highlight the arts cultural master plan in particular, just because it is one of the, I would say, lesser well-known plans that the city has. So that is really designed to encourage exposure to diverse populations, arts, and cultures within Lake Worth Beach, directing growth to the downtown of the city and reinforcing that as a cultural destination. It specifically recommends development between First Avenue South and First Avenue North, including adding height and density for mixed-use live-work developments supporting artists. Assemblages of land are encouraged in that plan to create these mixed-use developments. So as always, we have to consider our zoning. So this is both, again, going to be proposed to be rezoned to the downtown zoning district and create a mixed-use urban plan development. So they were reviewed for compliance with the mixed-use urban plan development section in 23.3-25 and the downtown zoning district. No waivers are being requested to the land development regulations as part of this proposal. Incentives are being proposed through plan development provisions, sustainable bonus, transfer development rights, and affordable and workforce housing. They're also using the mixed use parking incentive to reduce the required parking by 25%. Generally, the proposed museum and residential development complies with all applicable zoning requirements. There are two areas that we'll highlight where there is some difference. So overall, we've got our zoning site. This table is really there to provide you with that discussion of the overall density across the entire plan development site, all phases. So this is that phase one table, or the first half of it really. So the first spot, that we have some conflict is conflict between the downtown zoning district intent and what's written in the major thoroughfare design guidelines regarding front setbacks on Lake Avenue. So in our downtown zoning district, it specifies that all buildings fronting on Lake and Lucerne shall be situated between 5 feet from the property line to give a consistent building line along the avenues. So the intent of that is to create, apologize that I keep flipping between. The intent is to create that consistent building line for pedestrians along the downtown in Lake and Lucerne. However, the parcels at 501 and 509 Lake Avenue have already lost 10 feet of their property to the Lake Avenue right-of-way. So constructing the museum 5 feet behind their current front property line would not give us that consistent line of buildings. It would put them behind the rest of the buildings on that block. So the major thoroughfare design guidelines also specifically call for setbacks of buildings along the same street to be consistent in distance. So for this reason, we find that it is consistent for the building to be constructed at a 0-foot lot line along the front on Lake Avenue. This is specifically for the museum building. The other area that we need to give a quick note on is the glazing requirement for ground floors on Lake Avenue. There's a requirement specifically in the downtown zoning district that ground floor designs along Lake Avenue should have 75% of the ground floor transparent, whether that's windows, doors, or other transparent openings. We have added a condition of approval that needs to be slightly increased. They are an estimated maybe like 10% below that requirement. So we've added a condition of approval to add a minor site plan amendment, amend the ground floor of the museum facing Lake Avenue to increase the transparency. One note on the parking as well. The parking provided for calculations in your staff report noted 222 spaces. In working with the Palm Beach County Fire Department, they were able to agree on a change to fire access locations, which afforded them one additional space on street. So it's increased from 222 to 223.
Okay.
Small change. So we've got our zoning. Again, we've got these phases 2 and 3 for that CRA property and the Cultural Council. There is no specific development proposed. So this analysis is primarily discussing, again, that density that they could have on their site through affordable workforce housing provisions and the stacking of incentives that are part of this PD. That's the other one. And then we've got sustainable bonus. So getting into the incentives. The comp plan states that a mixed-use urban plan development may obtain a 25% bonus on density, intensity, which is FAR, and height over the baseline as outlined in table 1 of that comp plan. So the applicants are asking for a bonus height of 56.25 feet, an additional 10 units per acre, which is 22 bonus units overall, 17 in phase 1, and a floor area ratio of 2.27. So calculating out their total square footage of bonus area gets us to this, bit over $1 million total. Typically, 50% of that is required to be paid to the city. In their existing development agreement that was approved by the commission, that was waived. However, based on what they are proposing, their estimated value of qualifying features is far beyond what they would be required to provide to us. So those features include the arts alley, community art space, public art, bike systems, and potential historic structure relocation. Our transfer development rights, projects that use this have to be a PD, which this is, and have to have incorporated all of the density, height, and intensity bonuses from the sustainable bonus program prior to being eligible for this. They meet both those requirements. So they are requesting the bonus 10 units per acre of density that they are able to request under TDR. So again, that's 22 units across the entire property, 17 bonus units for that phase 1 property. The TDRs were also waived by the city commission in terms of the standard $15 per square foot TDR fee. Getting to affordable and workforce housing. So this is based in our comprehensive plan, but also established in our LDRs. The Affordable Workforce Housing Program requires that all units acquired through the Affordable Workforce Density Incentive to be income restricted, as well as 15% of the units gained through any other city programs. So that sustainable bonus and TDR comes with a requirement to restrict some of those bonus units as affordable and workforce. So they are asking for the 15% density incentive. They are proposing 110 units again in that phase 1. 8 of those will be income restricted at 80 to 120% of area median income for 15 years. This is less than the city's standard requirement for 25 years, but that reduction was part of that development agreement with the city commission. The applicants did provide calculations for the in lieu fee amount that resulted from the reduction in the affordability period. It's about $435,000, and that was provided calculations to you in your backup. The CRA site at 30 South K Street is transferring 6 of their market rate units from the phase 1 residential building, to the phase 1 residential building in exchange for 6 of the phase 1 buildings affordable and workforce units. Those 6 are those that were required through the sustainable bonus and TDR programs. So the CRA site will be required to provide those 6 affordable units. The phase 1 site is also transferring an additional 8 workforce units that are available to them through the Affordable Workforce Housing Program. So this is just a quick visual of that transfer, again, was part of the backup and site plan package. So site plans will be brought to you along with COAs at a future date for residential development on the CRA site and the Cultural Council site. Both are eligible for bonus affordable workforce units. So the exact number that will be developed there is yet to be determined, but they're being vested for the maximum amount at this point. So staff recommendation and analysis, as conditioned, staff finds that the proposed plan development is consistent with the comp plan, strategic plan, mobility plan, redevelopment plan, and arts cultural master plan, as well as the major thoroughfare design guidelines and relevant sections of the land development regulations. These are anticipated and encouraged uses in downtown when we're talking about a museum and residential uses. They provided documentation to support the findings that staff have made in your staff report. And so we are recommending approval with all of these conditions. So we'll flip through these somewhat quickly. We do have a note on these yellow highlighted conditions from electric utilities. On Monday, the 14th, it was raised to us that the previous condition number 7 conflicted with language in the development agreement. So condition number 7 has been revised and new conditions number 8 and 9 have been added to align with the existing development agreement. Those revised conditions will be reflected in the City Commission staff reports and revised ordinance text. So again, here are our motions for when it is time for those. So part 3, certificates of appropriateness. So we've got 4 COA requests as part of this. So an overall quick note on property history. We've got 11 parcels in the COA project area. 8 of those parcels are vacant and or unimproved, generally open land or parking lots. Many of the structures had sites that were demolished anytime between 1984 and 2025, mostly due to declarations by the building official that the structures were unsafe. 3 of the parcels do have existing structures: 501 Lake Avenue, 17 South M Street, and 26 South L Street. So we'll discuss their property history in a little bit more detail. So starting with the 2 sites that have potential relocation, 17 South M Street has an existing plus or minus 2,100 square foot principal structure, as well as an accessory structure. These are 2-story frame vernacular structures with colonial revival detailing, designed by C.R. White and built in 1941. They underwent rehabilitation in 2012, which included window and door replacements, siding replacement, metal shingle roof replacement, reconstruction of the front porch, replicating the original drawings, and some interior renovations. This was originally a residential home and garage apartment. It was converted to office use and most recently housed the city's leisure services department. And both structures, the principal and the accessory structure, are contributing resources to the Old Town Local Historic District. 26 South L Street is about a 3,100 square foot residential structure, also a 2-story frame vernacular structure with colonial revival detailing, designed by local architect Edgar S. Wharton and built in 1940. There have been 2 rear additions in 1968 and an additional one in 1971. That was a carport that was enclosed in 1975. Other alterations include installation of aluminum siding and roof replacement from asbestos shingles to asphalt shingles. This was originally a 4-unit multifamily residence, and it is also a contributing resource in the Old Town Local Historic District. So, relocation. If any of you were watching or attending the City Commission meeting last night, their discussion focused heavily on proposed relocation of 17 South M Street to the South K Street site, and did touch on 26 South L Street as well. So the intent was originally to relocate the structures at 17 South M Street to city property and continue their use as city facilities. It would be next to the proposed city parking garage, and then relocate 26 South L Street to the CRA site at 30 South K Street for the CRA's use as part of new affordable housing development. Based on last night's discussion, the City Commission may be amending construction proposals for the garage to take up the entire South K Street site, which leaves the location for 17 South M Street in flux. The CRA has also raised concerns about the financial feasibility of moving and renovating 26 South L Street, in particular difficulties of finding partners for that rehabilitation. So given that discussion, it's been requested that the Hrpb review and consider an amended relocation COA with the potential for relocation to other sites than the 2 originally proposed sites, as well as potential demolition. This amended relocation COA would follow the pattern of the original Hrpb COA approval for the L&M properties in September of 2019. So it would be conditioned that the applicants make all possible attempts to relocate the structures within the city. The specific proposed relocation sites would need to be brought back to you for approval. And if no feasible relocation sites have been identified, proposed, and approved prior to the issuance of new construction building permits and all related approvals for redevelopment of 17 South M Street and 26 South L Street, the existing structures would be demolished. So this would be with the goal of getting the city and the CRA time to consider impacts of things like proposing a larger garage, consider creative alternatives to the original relocation proposal, and still give a clear path to continue the proposed redevelopment of the overall site. So with that, we're going to walk through the relocation analysis. You did get one in your staff reports. So the buildings are able to be safely moved without significant damage or loss of historic characteristics based on the information we currently have. It would have no effect on archaeological resources on the existing or proposed sites, and applicants have agreed to provide all required documentation of the structures prior to any relocation. So the analysis you had in your staff report was talking about relocation within the same historic district, which would maintain all compatibility with the surrounding district and neighborhood, would not affect the threshold of contributing resources in the historic district, and would maintain the historic association with the development of the city's residential core. If the structures were proposed to be relocated to a different historic district or outside the historic districts, which, given the difficulties of moving a structure down narrow city streets, would be unlikely, but technically possible, it would not bring the threshold of contributing structures below the requirement for the Old Town Historic District. And the proposed sites, part of that analysis of bringing the specific sites back to you, would be ensuring that the proposed sites reflect the structure's historic associations with Great Depression era development in the city and residential and mixed use context of the neighborhood. We do also want to walk through the main points covered in decision-making criteria for demolitions if this were to get there. Granting a COA for the demolition of these would be a loss to the city to some extent of historic resources. These are unlikely to qualify as individual landmarks on the National Register, which is one of the criteria that we discuss for demolition. They could likely be reconstructed using materials today available today without great difficulty or unreasonable levels of expense. And they are certainly not the only remaining examples of frame vernacular architecture in the city. They do, however, display early development patterns of the city of Lake Worth and the construction techniques utilized in these specific cases, local architects are, significant. Concurrent new construction is proposed on the site, which is part of our demolition criteria. And like I mentioned before, there are questions of potential economic hardship and feasibility of relocation and rehabilitation that the city and the CRA are working through and considering. The redevelopment, including potential development of these properties, is part of the overall redevelopment plans established in the Downtown Arts and Cultural Master Plan, which makes the special decision-making criteria for redevelopment areas also relevant for these structures. So it's part of that development agreement and arts culture master plan that were approved by the city commission, and in terms of the development agreement, also approved by the CRA board. So if you all feel comfortable with the proposed amendments to that relocation COA, we would propose amending conditions of approval to add the highlighted yellow conditions that you see here. It's really outlining what I was talking to you about before, making all possible attempts to relocate, bringing specific sites back to you for approval, and the potential for demolition if relocation is infeasible. All right, so this is for sure. So this would be that amended motion acknowledging the amendment to the staff recommended conditions and amendment to the COA. So that's kind of the biggest one, because we had those discussions last night. Things had changed a bit from your staff reports. So getting to the other COAs, our next COA is a demolition request for 501 Lake Avenue. 501 Lake Avenue is about 2,400 square foot building. It's a one-story masonry vernacular building designed by local architect Edgar Wortman, constructed in 1939. There were major alterations in 1968. You can see that somewhat in the front elevation in the photo and drawings there. The front elevation originally had two separate doors flanked by three-part casement windows, a central cast stone panel, and decorative arched brick planters on the front and side elevations. The 1968 renovations created a central front entrance flanked by two tall windows on either side, removed all decorative brick detailing, altered the size of window openings on the east elevation, added awnings across the structure, constructed a carport and garage and walled patio on the west side, and removed most of the windows on the west side of the structure to replace them with doors. The structure was renovated again in 2005, including a replacement of casement windows with single hung windows and interior alterations. This property has been used as a dental office, offices for the Greater Lake Worth Chamber of Commerce, and most recently offices for the City of Lake Worth Beach Parking Division. As of July 2025, this building has been vacated. It is a contributing resource in the Old Town National Register Historic District. And like I said, this property is proposed to be demolished. So you did have all of the staff review of decision-making criteria for demolitions in your staff report. We'll go over the main points in the presentation tonight. So while granting the COA would again be a loss to the city of a historic resource, it is staff's analysis that the building does not contribute so greatly that it would constitute what is written in our code as an irreparable loss of a significant historic resource. This is unlikely to qualify as an individual landmark on the National Register. It could be reconstructed using materials available today, and there are many other remaining examples of commercial masonry vernacular architecture in the city. The design of the structure is not so notable that it would provide an exemplary opportunity to study local history or design, or develop understanding of a particular culture or heritage. Concurrent new construction is proposed on site, and the building does contribute to the overall ensemble of low-scale commercial buildings within the district. However, its contribution is not necessarily especially significant within the district. So again, we also have this special criteria for redevelopment areas. So The code states that the HRPB may grant a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, even though the designated landmark or property within the designated historic district has reasonable beneficial use, if the HRPB determines that the property no longer has significance as a historic, architectural, or archaeological landmark, or that the demolition of the designated property is required by a community redevelopment plan approved by the City Commission and the CRA. So this demolition property is again part of the overall redevelopment plans established in the Downtown Arts Culture Master Plan. And the demolition of this building in particular is also identified as one of the CRA obligations in the development agreement that was approved by both the CRA board and the CRA commission, or the City Commission, in the fall of 2024. So it does constitute a requirement by a community redevelopment plan that was approved by both of those governing bodies. So our recommendation is that you approve the COA for demolition with conditions of approval requiring documentation of the existing structure prior to any demolition and submission of an updated site file form to the state. We've got motions here. And then we'll get to the final stage of this presentation, the new construction COAs. So just a reminder of the site plan for phase 1. We'll zoom in really quick. So we've got the museum building and arts alley in this part of the site plan. The museum is about 32,283 square feet, 4 stories. It's got cafe, retail, galleries, storage, offices. And then the residential property, it is about 136,800 square feet, 5 stories with 110 dwelling units, resident amenity space, and community art space. So we're going to get into more of the renderings and some of the visuals here. So again, this is the view of both buildings from the corner of Lake and South M Street. This is the museum building looking east on Lake Avenue. You can see a teeny bit of the residential building behind the existing commercial buildings in this as well. This is a view looking south or southeast on South L Street, mainly of the residential building Arts Alley. And here we have the residential building looking from the corner of South L Street and First Avenue South. You can see here that stepped height very clearly. This is looking north-northwest on South M Street. So you see the residential building, including the underground parking entrance where that blue pickup is in the rendering, as well as part of the museum there. And this is looking south-southwest on South M Street. You can see the residential building, the arts alley, and part of the museum here. So here we've got the front elevation of the museum, the north elevation facing Lake Avenue. This is the elevation where we would need to slightly increase the transparency that we discussed. This is the east elevation facing South M Street. This is the west elevation. This is where they are proposing the mural to create that visual interest. And this is the rear elevation facing the arts alley. So they did include in their elevation sheets material details and finishes. You also have a physical version of those at the front of the podium there. And we've got our residential architectural elevation. So this is that west elevation facing South L Street. This is the south elevation facing First Avenue South, where you see that big white rectangle. That's the existing 2-story condo building nearby. So they included that to show basically that, you know, that will be blocking views. This is the north elevation, which faces interior to the project towards the arts alley. So you have on the left-hand side the community art space entrance, as well as entrances to the resident bike room and resident amenity spaces. And this is the east elevation facing South M Street. So again, you've got that white kind of ghost shadow of the condo building. You can also see here the underground parking entrance, loading space. And we have our materials and finishes for the residential building. They are slightly different from the museum. And then, as always with historic structures, we've got our streetscapes, so you can see it in the context of the surrounding properties. So here we have Lake Avenue, the streetscape on South L Street, the streetscape on First Avenue South, and the streetscape on South M Street. So getting into our COA analysis. So these buildings are obviously larger in scale than surrounding structures. The applicants did take efforts to be reminiscent of the massing of those structures. The step backs in particular are important here to help read to the eye at the pedestrian scale as lower scale buildings. The width and massing are in scale and generally appropriate for a large scale development, and the height is appropriately in proportion to the width of the structures. They do provide substantial glazing on the ground floor of both buildings, referencing plate glass storefront windows on surrounding commercial historic structures. And generally, their patterning of windows, doors, porches, and balconies are appropriately spaced and sized in proportion to the massing of the structure to echo the surrounding commercial district. The residential structure in particular differentiates sections of the structure through rhythmic patterns of square and arched openings. The residential structure really succeeds in breaking the massing into smaller bays with the alternating textures, styles, opening patterns. The museum is not broken into bays, but it does have an adequate rhythm of projections and opening for visual differentiation. The buildings are spaced appropriately in relation to their neighbors, and the entrances do have architectural prominence and delineation. The metal eyebrow projections that are used on both buildings are fairly common in mid-century styling. The materials, texture, and color of the proposed buildings are in keeping with the materials used in the surroundings structures. The residential building has stucco finishes and alternating colors and textures, again, to provide that differentiation to planes of the facade. And it will have metal detailing on portions of the upper floors and arched column features. This is a bit more of a modern feature, but it does create visual differentiation to show it and identify it as a modern contemporary structure rather than a historic structure. The museum has a wider variety of materials and textures, again, primarily featuring smooth stucco, but they are also proposing fiber cement panels and corrugated metal paneling on smaller sections. These are not typical to historic structures, but do add modern materiality to the proposed museum. The flat roof lines are visually compatible and very common within the neighboring commercial and multifamily structures. These buildings do avoid creating any sort of false sense of history within the historic district. They are visually modern and contemporary while incorporating elements of historic structures in the surrounding district through their materiality, their glazing, and fenestration features. The multifamily structure in particular incorporates mid-century styling with their curved balconies and metal banding. Both structures generally feature a simple mid-century style with their smooth terrace projections, large spans of glass, poured concrete, and mixture of architectural materials and detailing. So, long story short, as proposed, staff finds that both structures successfully demonstrate compatible architectural styling and are appropriate for their surrounding district. So we are recommending approval with the conditions that you see here for both COAs. So we have our motions. The applicants are here tonight and will provide a separate presentation.
I have to say that was an incredible presentation. Very thorough, really well done. It's impressive.
Yeah, if you guys want to go straight to the applicant, you want to do that.
Thank you very much, Annie. Good evening, board. Nice to be here. My name is Renee Miller, and I represent the applicant, Sunshine Lake Worth Development. Thank you. So how could I top that? But I'm going to try I'm going to try to not be duplicative in my presentation. I'll be joined this evening by my colleagues, Kathleen Kaufman, who is our historic preservation expert, and I'll be joined by Robert Thomas, who is our architect. Can you still hear me? Okay. As I said before, our project team, not everyone is here, but this evening you'll be hearing from the key members who can speak to the questions that are before you this evening. Today, I'm going to try to quickly move through, in the interest of the board's time, an overview of the development, how our development overall aligns with the public benefit, the historic preservation concepts, our campus design, and just end with the development schedule. I think, as Annie very succinctly, but with enough detail to understand your 400-page packet, walked you through each one of the different programs through which we evaluated as we were moving through the design that you see before you this evening. As you know, and as kind of talked through in the background of my presentation, is that we have been working for the last year with the city staff, with the Cultural Council, with the CRA, to establish a pretty comprehensive cultural arts campus. So part of the reason why you are seeing this larger downtown plan development is because, as we moved through this process, we understood that this development would be significant in impact, and that we needed to, along with our partners, think through the next steps in the future phases as it related to things like infrastructure, parking, et cetera. So as you see in your packet this evening, we have development application partners. Those development application partners are, of course, the Lake Worth Beach CRA and the Cultural Council, for the purposes of what's before you this evening. Now, Annie took you through it in great detail. I am visual, so it was easier for me to understand the transfer of development rights and some of the concepts for which she spoke through this map. As you can see, we have phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 2 developments are shown in green. But what I've often found sometimes difficult to explain is the transfer of development rights and how we are working with our application partners to be able to meet the intent of the downtown vision. So in this process, we are in fact trading units. So as you can see, our development is providing a total of 14 affordable units, or 14 units, to the CRA site, for which they will send back to us 6 market rate units. And Annie, in much better detail, broke down how those go based on the sustainable bonus programs and how many units are broken down within each. But this visual seeks to address that. Here you can see some of the site plan considerations that we have been working through. I won't bore you with the number and the amount of time, but we spent many months with community outreach, many meetings with the CRA, many meetings with the team at the city, to come up with an initial site plan that was inclusive of some relocation. But because of public infrastructure need, and rightfully so, the city commission, who are the city of Lake Worth Beach, who are also our partners in this overall development program, need some time to flesh that out. And we are fully, our role is the worker bee with respect to the historic structures, and whatever this community and the commission wants to do with that, we are here to support that as it is already laid out in our development agreement. So in your packet, you have in great detail what all of our qualifying sustainable features are. Generally, they are grouped in our community art space. So what you see is a 2,000 square foot community art space that is attached to the residential site plan, and our architect will go through that in a little bit more detail. But that is a space that is going to be dedicated to arts education, arts programming outside of the museum, but in partnership with the CRA, with the city, and with the Cultural Council. That is a public space that we are developing and will help program on behalf of the community. We are also developing the art walk that's meant to connect the block with the outside community. And then we are designing on behalf of the city, the portion of the art walk that will be between K Street and L Street. We are, of course, providing our workforce housing, but one very important thing to note is that workforce housing is live work. So we have heard from our cultural council partners that one of the needs in Palm Beach County in general is for places for artists to not only live, but to work that is affordable. And so you'll see that the lofts that are included, the artist lofts that are included, are actually the largest units that are in our development. So when most developers approach affordable housing and make either smaller units or units that are the same size, we have reserved what would otherwise be premium units in a market rate development to address the need that our partners have said exist in the county and in this community in particular. We have taken a lot of care to listen to what exists in your code in terms of vision for the downtown mixed use district. We have stayed as closely as possible to each one of the tenants that you have in your code. And for a development of this size with very limited variances that we are asking for, I hope you see that effort in the application that is before you. And finally, we believe in alternate transit options. And we think to be able to preserve the downtown, we understand throughout your code that is also a vision for this community. So you will see that throughout our application. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the economic development impact of our investment in the community. WMOTA will generate over $7 million in ad valorem revenue over the next 10 years. I must take the opportunity to clarify that all of the parcels will remain on the tax rolls. So the museum parcel will remain private ownership. So it's very important to clarify that. I know that has been a point of confusion. So WMOTA Museum. So I know today we're really not talking about programming and we're not talking about art in the direct sense, but I would be remiss if I didn't close my my portion of the presentation to come back to where this all started and why we are doing this, to find a purpose-built home for the WMOTA Art Collection. And for those of you who have maybe had an opportunity to go down to Hollywood to see our temporary space, you'll see it is a beautiful collection and a big part of what it is that we do, not just the things that have been amassed over all of the years for which Mr. Wiener has been building this collection and will now, as his legacy, provide it to Lake Worth Beach and hopefully the rest of the world in perpetuity. This is meant to show that we also do a lot to partner with local artists. So all of the artists that you're seeing represented here and all the work that you see on this slide is just a small bit of some local South Florida artists that we work with and that exhibit on a rotating basis in our museum, but also work with us because of that exposure that we give to host children's program, to throw pottery, or glass programs to show kids how to blow glass or how to put something together. And of course, in the center, our recent participation in the Street Painting Festival and featuring a local muralist that has worked with the CRA prominently before. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Kathleen Kaufman, who is our historic preservation specialist.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you for giving your time here tonight. And I wanted to just tell you, I'm very appreciative of you pointing out the hard work staff has done, because that is a lot of analysis and it was a lot to go through and to try, kind of make it concise for you. Well done. I'm obsessed with historic windows. That's why my picture up there is at University of Virginia in the Rotunda building with their incredibly high profile muntins in their windows. My name's Kathleen Kaufman, and I have been in the field of historic preservation for 28, 29 years now. I have 2 degrees in the field of historic preservation, one from the University of Florida. And I've been the historic preservation officer for several places around Florida, including Fort Pierce, Lake Park, which is in Palm Beach County, City of Miami, and currently at the City of Gainesville. I was the historic preservation chief at Miami-Dade County for 10 years, and I served 3 or 4 years as the executive director for the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation, which is the nonprofit statewide organization. In 2021, I was appointed by the governor to the Florida Historical Commission, and they made me the vice chair of the National Register Review Committee. And I have recently been appointed also to University of Florida's Historic Preservation Board of Advocates. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of my background so that you know why this team, hopefully why they wanted me a part of this. In 2018, after I had left the position at Miami-Dade County, I started my own preservation consulting firm, KSK Preservation. And one of our first projects in tandem with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council was I wrote your design guidelines. So I'm a little bit familiar with them. And as I was, crafting my analysis, and I apologize for the 17 pages of analysis, but I was like, who wrote this? This is incredibly detailed. It is crazy. Quick project overview. Again, you've already heard some of these things a couple times, so I'm going to be concise. The demolition, relocation of contributing structures, residential component, museum component. You have the 6 historic districts, and even though Old Town is the smallest district, it is one of the most important. It is the original downtown of Lake Worth. And the demolition of this structure that we've already gone over, I would not qualify this building as eligible for National Register. And actually, after seeing the original drawings, there's been so many alterations to this building that I don't think it would be a huge loss for the district in comparison to what you're getting in return. Normally, we don't love to see demolitions in historic districts, and I understand that, and I value your position on that. As you've just heard twice now, as of last night, there may be some alterations to where the relocated structures are going. But what I was going to tell you for both of these buildings is that originally they were only being planned to be moved a block and a half. So the context is not going to be disrupted. They would still stay in the district. And depending on what the city's desire is now going to be, we will continue to work with them to try to make that piece of this project something that we can be okay with. So there's a residential component and the museum component as far as the new construction. Your design guidelines and your historic preservation ordinance are very thorough. And there's a lot of criteria in both of those documents. The two main things that they kind of really focus on are context and compatibility. So that is something that I was really trying to look at through all this. I have seen the design of these come a very long way from the beginning of this project to where they're now presenting to you. And you have existing properties that will be affected, and you have a district that will be affected. So it was my job to kind of go through the district and try to find out how these would affect the existing properties and the rest of the district. So the effect on the existing properties you really only have usable right now. Your two catty corner properties are what are still being used right now. You have the condo building at the lower end that is not a part of this project. You have the commercial structures along Lake Avenue that are existing, but with the other properties being vacant, a lot of this block is surface parking and vacant lot. And this is an incredibly important downtown block. So it's not the greatest use right now of this block. And I think that what you're getting proposed in its place is absolutely appropriate for a downtown area. And the effects on the district. So I looked around the immediate blocks and further out from the project site. You already have a mix of building heights. A lot of the existing historic buildings are obviously 1 and 2 story. You do have the Lucerne already in existence. And this design team was very cognizant of the fact that was a controversial project, and they wanted to stay below the height of that. So even though the residential structure is 5 stories, it stays below the height of the existing Lucerne. Additional housing units, that's something we always try to encourage in the downtown area. This is the residential. As I already explained, the 5 stories are still lower than the Lucerne. The design team took great pains to kind of step back this project at every level. So what you're seeing from the street is really going to be like a 2-story building. And that's significant. I deal with new construction in downtowns all the time, and you really want to avoid that canyon feel, that canyon effect. So the step backs are very important, and they have done multiple step backs as the building goes up. You have a lot of undulating spaces, and the architect will talk more about this, but great pains were taken to have the building, recess and come out and provide a lot of interior space so that you don't have a long piece of wall, because it is a large building. The museum is 4 stories. Also, the top portion of it has been stepped back. And I'm going to talk a little bit very quickly about mid-century modern architecture and why we chose that as what to kind of put forth in the design of the museum and the residential structure. This is a quote actually from your guidelines. When building a new structure within a historic district, the applicants should consider the variety of historic styles in Lake Worth Beach, choose one, and design a structure consistent with the details provided in this guide. So we thought, well, they're clearly going to be modern buildings and they're going to be big. What style that's still represented in Lake Worth Beach would be the best fit for that? And that's mid-century modern all the way. And you have several pages dedicated in your design guidelines to mid-century modern. Your period of significance in the historic district is from 1912 through the 1950s, and you have a variety of architectural styles. And I don't need to describe these buildings to you, but just in case for the people watching, you have everything from Art Deco and nods to streamline modern. You have Mediterranean revival. You have vernacular. So you have the gamut of historic styles exhibited in your downtown district. These are residential examples that I wanted to show you. And the reason I'm showing you these is because I'm hoping when the architect gets up and does their presentation, you'll start to see some of the transferring over of some of the features. So Mid-century modern is where we really start to see a lot more use of a lot of glass in the building. And this is because the building technology was changing rapidly, starting in the 50s and post-World War II. So you see a lot more glass, angled or flat roofs were very common. And you also start to see the use of a lot more materials on one building instead of just one exterior fabric. The shaped blocks is called a brise soleil. And that is a very, very common feature in mid-century modern architecture. You have the rusticated stone or the use of the brick veneer. And these are some commercial examples for you. And I really wanted you to kind of take note of the arches, because a lot of us know arches as being a common feature in Mediterranean revival, but they're different. They're a different proportion. They're like a different style in the mid-century modern use of it. You have a lot of angular pylons. You have windows that have projecting eyebrows around them, or projecting sills, or are boxed in. You have a lot of use of the geometrical shapes. And even on the walls itself, you have the use, or you have in the wall material, you have a treatment to the material that gives you depth and plays off the light and darkness of shadows. These are some of Lake Worth's buildings. They're not all still here now, but I wanted you to see that Lake Worth Beach did have quite a few great mid-century modern buildings. So it's not unusual to bring, it would not be unusual to bring back mid-century modern as sort of a statement piece for the city. So then I went and reviewed context. Like, what is the context right around this project site? Is there any nod to mid-century modern already? And you do. You have the beautiful building at the bottom left, even though that's just about hitting the 1940s. And that is coming out of the Art Deco style with its emphasis on the verticality. But you've got that, the beautiful shape of that facade paneling there. Right across from one of the buildings that's supposed to be relocated is the pink and the aqua building. And these are referencing Streamline Moderne with their racing stripes and the projecting sills and the cantilevered canopy over there. And right across from the proposed museum site, they aren't the most extravagant buildings, but they are from 1950. And they do exhibit the mid-century modern style with their angled pylons and the projecting canopies. So you do have right across from the museum already contributing structures that are in the mid-century modern style. Before I hand it over to the architect, I did want to say one thing to you. I do sometimes work with developers, big developers. I'm the historic preservation consultant for Fort Partners down in South Florida. And with them, we restored the iconic the surf club in Surfside, to which the Four Seasons has been built onto it. But I don't work with developers typically. Like, that's not my thing. I'm a historic preservationist. And a lot of times I don't like what the big developers want to do. And I just wanted you to understand that if I were going to put my name to a project and participate in something, it's only going to be because I believed in it and I felt like it was an appropriate thing for the city. And having done your design guidelines, I'm very protective of Lake Worth Beach. So that's just all I wanted to say. And I think the architect is up next.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm Bob Thomas. I am a principal at HLW. I run the Florida office. I am a 50-plus year resident of Palm Beach County. I've been working in the area my whole career. And, this project that I'm going to show you today, Annie's done a great job of already showing you a lot of it, and Kathleen has talked about it. So I'm just going to kind of emphasize, a little bit more about what they've already shown. And if I could figure out how this works. Okay, there we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about the site plan and how we sited the building. We looked at the mobility plan in downtown Lake Worth. When we fit into it, we looked at how on a pedestrian scale and walkability scale, how these buildings fit within the city. We walked the site and it tied it into the existing sidewalks and paths. And, we feel it fits in there well. We looked at the existing bike lanes around the area. We've created a lot of bike parking and bike storage within it because, we think that, bicycles are important, both for the residents and getting around Lake Worth. We're seeing more and more of that as we develop projects. We looked at the bus. We have a bus stop there, to bring in school children to come to the museum. So that's an integral part of, how they get here. We've looked at how it works with the bus system and the transit system around the area. And, we've really studied it, and we want this building to really be an integral part of, your existing mobility plan. As you've seen before in some of the other drawings, we have the museum on the north part, which is on Lake Avenue, which is the upper part of the site here. And then we have what we call the Art Walk, which is the existing alleyway, but we think we've enhanced it and really made it a visual feature and an actual enhancement to the property. And then the residential building is really kind of that U-shaped building along on the bottom side of it, and it's a courtyard building, focusing on the streetscape as well as an internal courtyard. So this is a cross section through the site. And if you look on the left side, or excuse me, on the right side is Lake Avenue. The building on the far right is the Lucerne, which is the taller building. And then the blue building in the center is the museum. The museum, we've aligned the storefront with the existing storefront along Lake Avenue, and we think that's important. We've stepped it back at the second floor and created a balcony at the second floor to kind of give it a two-story feeling at the street level, so consistent with the street. And then, the third and fourth floor are set back. And we've changed the material really to bring out that facade on Lake Avenue and make it, an independent structure. So it really kind of reads visually as a two-story building. The art walk, the art walk right now is really, it's just an existing alley. It has your power lines going through it. So we thought it was really important to really to make that a feature in the property. And what we've done is we've taken the power lines and we've put them underground. So you don't have that unsightly power poles and all the electrical and everything above ground. And we took the alleyway and now we've created like a concrete paver, to make it a feature. We have a really strong landscape buffer along there. We've created lighting and banners there, to kind of enhance it, make it part of, the history of Lake Worth Beach, with the art community, and really let it tie into, the park adjacent to it, and really just kind of become a benefit rather than an eyesore. This is looking from M Street. The museum is on the right and the residential building on the left. And you can see the museum is really kind of a two-story, but this is architecture on all the sides. We've really looked at, this not just from Lake Avenue or just from M Street. We've actually turned the corner and gone down the alleyway with it. Sorry about that. And then, you can see the scale of the residential building. So the residential building, the highest point is on the alley. It's not on Lake Avenue. It's not on any of the streets. And then it cascades down as it moves down the street. This is the backside of the museum. We've really kind of made it a feature. This is the loading area, which we've hidden, the trash area again, which is hidden. There'll probably be murals and artwork that get enhanced on there, as this project develops. And again, we want to make it a pedestrian way and really just kind of enhance it. The museum itself, It is a four-story museum, but on the upper part there, you'll see, we have the entry, which has a cafe, and we see the cafe spilling out onto the street to become, part of that streetscape. Tables can be out there, umbrellas can be out there. You can see into the cafe, and then we have the bookstore and the entry on the corner, and it's really kind of a prominent part of the city, and we really just kind of open that part up, really to enhance. There's some beautiful books that are going to be sold there, artwork that's going to be sold there. So it's really kind of an inviting, come on in kind of look. And then, the gallery space on the ground floor. Second, the bookstore will be on the far right. It'll be in that, as you come in the entry. Yes, the retail. So there'll be books in there, and, artwork for sale and all kinds of really nice objects. The second floor is the main collection. We've been working on this. Our client has a very significant Chihuly collection, and I think it's probably going to be the second floor. He's commissioned a piece of artwork from Chihuly that's going to weave through this building. So that's part of it. His display of his collection is. He has a fabulous collection. I really do say, if you haven't seen the collection, you should go down. And you see only a little bit in the Hollywood, but it'll be enhanced when it comes to Lake Worth Beach. And then the third floor, it's more of the gallery space, but we're looking at being possibly being an event space as well. It does have that outside terrace on two sides. You look out over the street. I think it'll be a really nice space. We've had holes through the floor, so, we have visual interest, so it's really kind of getting the volume of the space and weaving the artwork through the building. And then, excuse me, that's the event space. Sorry, I didn't realize that. But the third floor, you can see the hole on the right side. Again, the artwork will be weaved through the floors, really trying to entice visitors to come up and see the entire collection. And then the fourth floor will have more gallery space, office space, and some of the other utilitarian requirements of a museum. Here's a section through it, and you can see, where we have openings through the gallery. So, the visual encouragement of the artwork, so you can see and really kind of start to tell a story and try to get people to come in and explore. The facade itself, we've broken it down. Again, on the ground floor, you see the storefront, which is continuous with the storefront along Lake Avenue. And then we have these, it's a concrete reinforced panel or a cement reinforced panel, very much like what Kathleen was saying on the screening of the old modern buildings. That's kind of that screen. It's an undulating panel that'll have the reflections, and lights cast on it. The window in there is kind of a view into the gallery. So you start to see the collection in the project. And then we framed it with a tile frame. So kind of, really kind of emphasize that window and really kind of make it part. We've got that streamlined flat panel above the window there, as you saw in some of the examples that Kathleen was showing. We've got that angled pillar at the side of the building. Again, all keeping in that context. Excuse me. The materials themselves, I think you can see them down here. Again, those are we've got the glass, we've got the reinforced. The reinforced panels, we've got the stucco colors, the different textures of the stucco. So, we're trying to make this, we're trying to break down the scale of the building and really kind of humanize it and bring it to a streetscape scale. You can see the windows, mullions there, the glass, and then the metal facade, with this, the upper portion of it, that kind of fades into the sky. Again, this is just kind of looking at the streetscape, the corner there. which is the entry. You can see the bus stop, we do envision schools coming here, with children to come and seeing. So we've provided off-street parking for that. You can see how the pedestrians, we've opened that corner up, made that corner very inviting so people want to come into it. We've cantilevered the building over it so you have a nice covered entry. And then you can see the windows are not just on Lake Avenue. We've also turned the corner with it. So you kind of get a glimpse of, what's happening inside. Again, it's all about a story and trying to encourage people to come in and see the collection. The residential building. The residential building, we have a pretty significant parking requirement. We have 110 units and, we could put the parking on grade, but parking on grade is visually not necessarily pleasing. So what we did, and the owner has gone to additional expense to do this, is he's buried the parking. He's put it underground. So you don't see that level of parking. So the building sits above it. So, when you go by, it's more of a park-like setting rather than, a parking lot in a residential building. So, that again, that's an additional expense, but we think it's a really important part of the project. As we talked a little bit earlier, the artwork on the top, we have the community center, which we see, bringing the community in, having art workshops in there, and then some of the amenities for the residents within the building itself. And then, we have 4 stories of parking above that ground level. Again, the 3rd level steps back, because along all the street sides and edges, it's 2 stories. And then we always step back from that 2 stories. So we have basically a podium, 2-story podium, and then the other apartments step back and rise from that. So again, everything is shaped and it's all around the center courtyard, which we have a pool and some amenities out in the courtyard. This is just a little bit about the square footage. We're at 181 square foot, including the parking underground. 62% of the project is 1 bedrooms, 38% is 2 bedrooms. They're really nice units. They're a little bit larger than probably most of the apartments in the area. Again, the facade here, we've really looked at the different, breaking up the elevations. So we have step backs within the elevations. We have different colors. We have the arches in the center, the massing on either side come out. So it's not a plain, flat facade. There's a lot of undulation within it. And then even on the corner, you can see how we have the windows set back, so it kind of, it's just, everything is really in a multi-plane facade. Again, trying to break it up, trying to humanize the scale rather than just having a blank wall coming out of the ground. So, and then again, we've got planters in front of it and really kind of trying to break down the streetscape. Here's another view. And again, we've have some nice wood tones on the canopies, and really just kind of trying to just break up the facades. You can see the balconies, they're curved. Again, as Kathleen was showing you the curved balconies, we've picked that up and reminisce. And then you can see the archways and how they work and to break it up. And they also emphasize, the entries. These are just some of the renderings that we do, and I'm going to show you both with the trees because we think it's important to see it really in the context. We are going to continue the landscape along the streetscape. We're going to have nice trees along all the roads. You can see out front here in this rendering, that's where the cafe spills out onto the street. This is on Lakeview and M Street, that corner. Again, it's really transparent at the base. At nighttime, you can kind of see the lights, you can see the excitement that's going in. So we're trying to get people, to pull them in. Here's it without the trees, just so you can see the overall architecture. Here it is on Lake Avenue, and again, we've continued the streetscape, so it's continuous with all of Lake Avenue. And we've set back the upper stories so they kind of disappear. And then we have that balcony, and they'll be things happening on those balconies, so that'll break it up even further. We are going to have a mural on the wall. Because of the code, the fire code, we can't have openings in there because it's a firewall between that and the adjoining building. But we are aware of that, and we are going to commission an artist to break that facade up and create a visual interest. So when you come down Lake Avenue, again, here it is without the trees. And then this is the corner entry to the residential building. This is on L Street, and this is the entrance. And you can see we have floor to ceiling glass, really just opening it up. We have the corner window again, as Kathleen was showing you in some of the earlier examples. That the corner windows, the planar facade, the above the entry canopy, the punched windows, the curved balconies. So all trying to fit into that scheme and the elevation. Again, without the trees. And, again, the trees are on there. We're going to, heavily landscape the streets, to kind of set it back, and we have shade trees, to set it back. We think that's important. And then the First Avenue view, looking up towards Lake Avenue. Again, opening that corner, making a lot of visual interest on the corners. And again, you can see how it's all broken up. We change scale, we change textures, we have the openings that break up that facade. Again, just to really humanize the scale. This is looking up at, M Street. This is the loading side. This you see there in front of the blue truck. That's the entry into the garage. So we're really kind of hiding the parking. So we don't have parking on the site. Another view towards the art walk. And then the development schedule.
Sure. I can take that one. Thank you. So we always want to share our anticipated schedule. And if we are successful in moving through this process, we anticipate the start of construction happening in the third quarter of 2026 and anticipated completion being in the fourth quarter of 2028. As you can see, the museum building will be delivered first, followed by the residential building. And that concludes our presentation, and we're here at your pleasure to answer questions.
Annie, could you do yours over against this side? What do we got next?
It's your choice. You can do board discussion, you can have questions, you can welcome public comment.
All right, we're gonna hold up on public comment for a second. I know you had some questions. Yeah. We could do our discussions and questions.
I mean, I truly have no questions. I think this is incredible. I mean,
Okay.
it's just amazing to me. So congratulations to everybody who's worked so hard on it.
I'm leaning the same way. I've been in construction a long time, 22 years. 2 o'clock this morning, I told my wife, I can't find anything. And I've seen plans where I gotta call the architect, I gotta call the engineer, I gotta go back and forth. These plans are superb.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything, I've never seen anything like it, to tell you the truth. 42 years. And the architect, I examined the civil, the civil, it's down right here, and the landscape. Superb. Superb job. And no small part, staff.
Yeah.
Great job. You know, I'm talented. Great job. Yes. CRA, you gave away the farm, but great job. The commissioners, I see the mayor and I see District 1. Good job. I know some, you know, I told the commissioner from District 4, he stopped by my house. I say, you know, when people put in the hard work, it will show. You've got to be willing to do the hard work. You did the hard work, and I swear it shows. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
I just want to add that our city is an arts town. I know that's a goal that our city decided it wanted to be quite many years ago. And I'm really impressed with the attention to arts education, arts programs for children, the arts walk, artist lofts, even things that, like the event spaces and the cafe and the bookstore. And and it all started with a museum, right? So what better way to be an art city, in my opinion? So I know there are some residents that are, have expressed concerns, and we can discuss that. But from a historic perspective, I mean, Kathleen, your presentation to show your support was, I think, really important to make us feel that, we are taking that into account, because that is very important. Not only are we an arts town, but we want to preserve our historic buildings. And we are, of course, the Historic Preservation Board. So we talk every month about projects that preserve the history of this town. And I think this project has really gone to great lengths to abide by everything the city is asking for. And the city is always on the side of historic, they're always pushing back. So I'm really impressed that that we're seeing that come through.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to echo what everybody has said about staff's presentation. I know some of the CRA staff did a lot of work as well. The W Motor staff did an incredible job. It was just so impressive, really impressive. And I know how much you have reached out to the community to get feedback, and ways that you have responded to concerns that the community had is very impressive as well. The packet, as was mentioned, the packet tonight was 461 pages. I read all of them. It consists of months, actually years of work by the CRA city staff, W Motor personnel and architects, CRA board, city staff as well. There were charrettes and public meetings about this project. They were attended by the commissioners. And I have a concern at the 11th hour about the question of demolishing the buildings, the 3 buildings that were due to be moved. And our board was told that we were the last step before final approval to the commission. And to have this inserted the 11th hour is very, very concerning to me about demolishing these buildings, these structures. It really feels like changing an integral part of the overall project. And my analogy is like you have a Jenga puzzle and the middle piece just got pulled out. And I feel like I'm being asked to vote on something without really understanding what's going to happen with these buildings. We can vote to continue to recommend to the board, to the commission, that we approve the project. And we'll just make those buildings disappear, but we'll still approve the project. We don't know how we're going to make the buildings disappear, but we're still going to approve the project. That's very, very concerning to me. The details and the cost of the relocation has been known for months. Many residents tepidly support the project because in their ambivalence, they say, well, at least the buildings are going to be preserved. At least we're going to preserve those buildings. And now this in question. And with that critical, question still outstanding, I just have some concerns, and taking a look at the new COA that we're being recommended to do, I really want to have some more questions and hear from the public about this.
Yeah, like the press.
William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. I will preface my comments on that I just got in from Gainesville, having spent a week in Atlanta with my family. So I missed last night's meeting, and I have not watched the movie. Um, I thank you. I probably will. The recommendation that Ms. Greeny went through what is exactly the same that the Preservation Board approved 6 years ago. In furtherance of at that time, an RFQ to develop what was called the L&M project, to make every effort possible to preserve the buildings. And there were more there then than there are now. We did have one that we lost to a fire about four or 5 months ago. So there are only two left out of the group, and that did not get condemned by the the building official, or were torn down. And so we're not asking anything of the Preservation Board that was not already approved by the Preservation Board those many years ago. Our certificates of appropriateness do have a time limit, so it ran out. And so as I understand it, every effort is going to be made to do something with those buildings. It may not be the original plan of what was put forward to relocate them to First and K general location, but you will be apprised of what the actual potential solution or not might end up being. As I understand it, there's interest in the garage being larger than what was proposed. If it gets larger, the buildings at 17 South M don't have a place to go. But also, the people that are in 17 South M now, which is leisure services, have nowhere to go if 17 South M isn't moved. So there are a number of things that the commission has to consider, the CRA has to consider, as well as staff, to put all the pieces together. And that just, I guess, came up last night, that there are some other avenues that are desirous of being looked at.
Just turn it on. Oh, sorry.
My voice normally doesn't carry across the microphone very well, so I'm really I guess I brought something back from our Atlanta. I'm not quite sure what it was. So you will be, hear of this again at some point in terms of what will happen to 17 South M and 26 South L.
I would say the other option, basically, because we can't pretend that the conversations last night didn't happen. We can't pretend that questions of 17 South M especially are in flux. So we proposed an amended version of the relocation COA. The other option for you guys tonight is to table the relocation COA only, and we would condition the new construction COAs that the relocation or discussion of what's happening at those properties would need to be brought back to you within 6 months of this approval.
I was going to say there has to be a time limit
Yes.
in that.
Yes,
Okay.
so it's a
Yeah, you're-
similar result in that it doesn't give a conclusive, this is what is happening on those
Right.
properties. But similarly, it gives time for the city and CRA to figure out what they want to do
Okay.
and bring it back to you.
How would that affect the overall time frame of the project?
So the existing development agreement, and Renee is our local expert on that. Essentially at this point, the relocation wouldn't have happened anyways, or wouldn't happen anyways prior to the approval of the new construction permits, which is a ways down the line.
So it'll stay within the time frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it the funding with the CRA? Okay, are they gonna have difficult funding rehabbing those buildings?
I think we'd have to let the CRA speak for themselves on that. Just for the public record, all three buildings are owned by the CRA. There was going to be a bill of sale agreement whereby the CRA was going to give back to the city 17 South M and the garage when they were relocated, because the CRA actually owns three of the parcels where the parking garage is proposed. And then eventually, the city will own all of those parcels and whatever happens to them. Funding is a challenge. As we all know, there are lots of things that Lake Worth Beach would like to have: a pool, no potholes, better city staff accommodations, because most of us don't have room for all the city staff that we have. There's a whole variety of things of competing interests, and we don't have final numbers on what it would cost to rehabilitate the three buildings once they are relocated, but we have a general idea. And the total cost of all three is going to approach $2 million. Some of that will be provided by WMODA as part of their development agreement. Part of it would have to come from city coffers somewhere. And then some of it would have to come from the CRA or potentially a housing partner. But there is a limit on how much a housing partner is willing to put in a residential unit that is going to be affordable or workforce housing. And I would dare say that the cost to rehabilitate the units that are in 26 Southdale are going to push the limits of most housing partners unless they can accommodate a large number of other units that just sort of spread the cost exponentially over not exponentially, but sort of spread the cost to bring the square foot value down. That's one reason why this was envisioned as a planned development, to get as many potential units available for the CRA property so that we could bring down the cost average per unit. Now, and Annie didn't mention this, and I didn't remind her to, but the unit numbers could go up if they decide to go with micro units, which is a process or option that is in the commission in our LDRs. Whether they would do that or not, those are smaller units. They can rent for lesser amounts of money, but again, there is no identified developer or partner for 26 South L.
Okay. All right, we're good up here. All right, staff, anything additional? Oh, well,
Chair.
sure, please. That's why we're here.
Any questions here, sorry?
4 pages.
I'm not quite sure who to direct these questions to, so Renee or whoever, the architect.
Someone will respond.
Somebody will respond. I'm just curious, and it may be in the packet somewhere, why was 501 Lake Avenue approved for demolition, but the other three were designated for relocation?
I'll start with the fact that 501 is masonry. It is extremely difficult to move a building like that. It also would not fit down any of our rights of way. So the potential to relocate it would mean taking it apart, which exponentially drives up its value. It's also, as Kathleen mentioned, as well as Annie, the context of that building and its original integrity has long since been gone. If that property were being, if we were designating the district now, it's highly likely that that building would not be considered contributing.
Next question is about, I assume that this has been considered, but all of the glass in the building, I assume super hurricane proof, right? There's a lot of glass.
Yes, and there's a big collection of glass inside, so hurricane proof is, yes, will be part of our process.
And that's like Miami-Dade standards, or which standards are those?
Yeah, we'll meet building code standards. I'll turn it over to the architect to talk about the exact glass specifications.
Yes, all the glass and all the windows will meet Florida product approval, which is a requirement in the code.
Next question is I know the mural is kind of a new concept. Is there any particular plan or scheme for the mural being considered currently?
No, not yet. I think there'll probably be a call to artists, and some kind of evaluation process will involve the people who.
Maybe the way we did it before, for the other project there, where you had a vote and I know you had the residents even vote on choices, maybe.
We will definitely involve, we are our strongest person down. Our executive director of our museum is in Seattle with Chihuly, still trying to finalize the things for the Lake Worth Beach piece, but she would be the person to speak to, like, the best way to move through finding the right artist and matching it with the community, and of course, we always go through a public process.
Ma'am, Miss, you did a great job.
Thank you.
There's only one thing, come this time, the project ready to go, we vote on this and you would go ahead. And you say 2026. And I noticed in the funding part of it,
Mhm.
Because funding stops a lot of projects. Is there a letter of intent from all the funders on this project on board?
Well, I'd say that I guess this is the best way for me to give you comfort.
Yes.
From our perspective, we have spent many figures, 6 at least, or 7 at this point to get to this point. If we didn't think and we didn't understand what, based on Mr. Wiener's financial relationships, that this was a feasible project to get financed, we wouldn't even be at this point because the investment is considerable. Our team is 30, 40 people deep, and we're working many hours to move through the product that you see before you today. So we do know that. One of the things that is a requirement in terms of our development agreement to protect the city's assets and protect the investments of the CRA through this process, and the city through this process, is that closing is staggered until after we prove that we can get through permitting and that we have all of the financing required to build it to the specification that's in the development agreement. Once we prove that to the city, then we can close on the asset itself and begin building. So all that structure of the financial relationship between the partners was constructed to ensure that the city's asset doesn't come to us until we prove that we can build this project. And who knows what happens in the world in 2026? God forbid factors change. We have to prove that we are still able to get bank financing before they will allow us to move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just had one more question. I'm sorry. Was there anything about the hours of operation? I saw one of the renderings, kind of like a twilight kind of a look.
Yes. We don't know exactly what our hours of operation will be, but we do know we won't be late into the evening type of operation. Certainly, currently, I believe the museum closes at 5 p.m. We are toying with what the best hours to be, a number of days to be open. Is it 6 days? Is it 5 days? What days are those 6 or 5 days? And what we don't want to do is prescribe what we did in Hollywood to Lake Worth Beach. We want to figure out what works and do that. We'll be in some extensive strategic planning for museum operations after we get through this hurdle of entitlement.
Thank you.
Here, about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to limit your public comment to 2 minutes, please. Sherry will let you know when you're done. It would be greatly appreciated.
Sherry, do you want to start with the app or the attendee on Zoom? Okay. All right. Ms. Robert, you may unmute and provide your public comment. If necessary, we'll cut you off at 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
You turned on that.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Deborah Robert. I live at 127 South K Street. And I want to thank the chair and the board, the staff, of course, of our city, WMOTA, the whole team, and the CRA. This is just so incredibly exciting to see. I bought our historically contributing cottage on the South K 100 block. So we were fully aware of our MF 30 zoning. And we're also aware that much the north side of First Avenue South is zoned for downtown and mixed use. So it's an inevitability that our downtown is going to extend to the beginning of our block. And we're excited about that. As with the Gulfstream rejuvenation, I see the WMOTA project in its entirety as a benchmark for everything we could want for downtown Lake Worth Beach revitalization. I believe the necessary zoning amendments and elements of change that you need to decide on for this project are well within the spirit of what our downtown was intended to become. And of course, there's an understanding that there are historic structure considerations and the like. But what's more, the WMOTA team has complied with everything asked of them, and they're well within code. They even stayed below height moratoriums and are stepping down the heights in the apartment complex to respond to what the people called for and to better meld into the overall look and feel of the mixed-use zoning adjacent to the south side. The project will create a vibrant living pedestrian artwork walk connecting the Cultural Council and dwellings to downtown while establishing a world-class art museum directly in our cultural center. Now, WMOTA and its ever-tightening bond with Dale Chihuly and the dynamic working relationship with the Benziken Center, which is expanding and expanding, this creates an unprecedented trifecta. It stands to anchor our city as a fine art mecca in the fire arts, and that's huge. The complex's relationship with the Benz will do much to contribute not only to downtown, but also will create more consistent connectivity and vibrancy between the east and underserved westward.
It's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to go with everyone who wants to speak for themselves. We're going to start with that first. And then after that, I'll read the comments from those who don't wish to speak. I'll speak for them. We're going to start with Greg Richter. He's here. After that, I have Jenny Powell.
Good evening, Greg Richter, 1202 South Palmway. I want to thank staff. I want to thank WMOTA Group and you guys for, being here tonight. This is I've been to several hearings, as Bob can tell you. This is should be the most uncontentious hearing I've ever been to. This thing, the way it was written out by staff, approve it the way staff has written it with the considerations that they put in it. Yes, you bring up a good point on the historic structures. You're going to have to work that out with the commission's going to have to work that out. They want to, I think they want to save 2 million. I listened to the meeting last night, but that aside, this is a great project. I've never seen anybody be more willing to come out and meet with the neighborhoods, there's no excuse. Nobody should ever come up here and make an excuse. We didn't know anything about that. They chose not to know about that. And if the people got issue with the parking, they are within our regulations. We got rid of 2 commissioners that made that parking the way it is now. So, they're within the guidelines of what we've set as a city. So they're not asking anything in exception of that. So thank you all very much. And thank you for your service. What you guys do.
Thank you, sir.
Jenny Powell. After that, I have Catherine Fulmeyer.
Good evening, board. I think some of you know that I haven't been in full support of this project. I'm a bit resigned that it's going to happen, but I have a lot of concerns, especially about the meeting last night, which I think we've barely given any attention to with the exception of one board member. That meeting was difficult. I had submitted a number of comments. I feel like, okay, I'm resigned to it, but I can make comments for potential consideration. My comments were not heard because the conversation devolved into a question about the historic homes. And it seemed pretty clear to me that a majority want to demolish those homes. I would say I'm sure, and I will commend Annie for her presentation. It was excellent. Yes, it was excellent. And I have no doubt that staff this morning was wringing their hands and sweating bullets to try to come up with a way to put it into tonight's presentation about demolishing those buildings. The big thing that was not mentioned was the financial aspect. It was slightly mentioned, I'll give William credit, that it's the cost of demolishing those structures. But it is in the plan. I think that's going to take away the last vestige of anything as far as historical preservation goes. Also, they can extend the size of the garage. And that was the main reason they were talking about the demolition, so they could make the garage bigger. What is it going to cost to increase the size of the garage? I have confidence that it's going to be millions. It's going to be far more than the 2 million to restore those historic homes. I'm also concerned that a project of this magnitude, this complex, in every way, most of my problems were with the density and the mass. And by the way, it says that we have 3 minutes. I know you made a decision tonight, but I would appreciate a little more time. I'm saying vote no. Wow.
Catherine Kohlmeyer, 503 First Avenue South. I wrote this comments. They come in at 2 minutes, 40 seconds. I've been practicing them and now I'm told I can't speak for 3 minutes. So as people know here, I'm very much opposed to this development. And I don't appreciate your expression when I said I'm upset that I've been denied one of my minutes. So anyway, a charrette in 2022 showed the residents overwhelmingly want infill incremental development being completely ignored. The development is not consistent with the 2017 master plan. It will forever change the face of Lake Worth. It's irreversible. Once you build these buildings, you're not going to be able to get them down. Look at me. Look at me. I'm talking to you. Oh, I'm very scary. Okay. So, I can't, it beggars belief to me that you're passing this off as historically appropriate. That you choose one style, mid-century modern. Most of Lake Worth is not mid-century modern. Most of it is single story or two-story. The parking garage, which is integral to this development, although we're consistently told it's separate, is based on a faulty study, which Commissioner Segrich agreed that study is faulty. So I don't think the parking garage is even needed. The giving 5 stories of the parking garage, the city's figures show it 9.7 million. If you extend it, the 40 feet by 115 feet that not relocating that building will give it, that's going to cost a great deal more. I'm surprised the city has this amount of money to spend on something so frivolous. And some of the benefits of this project, like the ad valorem taxes, our governor is proposing to stop property taxes. So the city will be giving away land and it won't even get property taxes back in return. There's a lot more here.
Tyler Chapman.
Hi there, I'm Tyler Chapman, 1224 16th Avenue North. I work with the Lake Worthian small team. We do an independent outlet for media, so you're aware. People are watching. A lot of people aren't in town right now. Reached out to me personally, asked me to come to the meeting, speak a bit. That's fine. It seems like some of you didn't watch the meeting last night, and I was sure I was at Historic Resources Preservation Board meeting, right? Yeah. Is this a glad handing developers meeting, maybe? Oh, maybe not. No? That's my mistake. Segrich said last night, too bad, so sad, about preserving those buildings. Are you the too bad, so sad board? No, I didn't think so. You're the Historic Resources Preservation Board. And now you know that they have the votes to destroy these buildings. They will not be preserved. It seems like you're okay with that. And you're very happy that the developers have put in hard work. I think it's great work too. I'm not against this development per se, but don't pretend like you don't know that these buildings are now going to be demolished. So, by all means, it seems like you've decided to move forward, but it does beg a question about what your job is up here. Thank you.
Volunteer.
Yeah, you're a volunteer. I understand.
Good evening. Appreciate it.
Tim Stokes. I'm sorry. Tim Stokes, followed by Peggy Fisher.
Somebody asked me how to. Do we have to give our address? Okay. Kim Stokes, 1321 North L Street. I do not approve of this project. I think it is going to completely destroy the entire character of our historic downtown. Nothing in this presentation, even though it was
made by a very qualified person that understands historic preservation convinced me that a project at this scale is appropriate for our historic downtown. Couple that with the demolition of all of the buildings that we know is coming and the massive parking lot that will be coming as well. Our downtown will be unrecognizable. WMODA put on all of their promotional material that they are helping the city achieve their goals by preserving those buildings. I guess that was just lip service. So I think if I know you're in a tough position as a volunteer board and you have a lot of pressures coming from a lot of areas. And what they did last night, throwing this curveball at you and saying, no, don't move this meeting until you've had time to understand the full scope of what's going on. Just remove an element and deal with that later. I think that was very unfair for them to put that on you. And the first part of the conversation talked about postponing this meeting. You can do that. You can vote tonight to say this meeting should be heard once all the details have been considered. That was actually what they were going down that path for a very long time. The city attorney said something like, new construction COAs are going out tomorrow. Not having a COA request for what these structures are going to do would be laughable. It would be funny. Like it's weird. She said weird. Like you're approving new construction on a site that has existing historic structures on it and you don't know what you're doing with those structures. That's weird. I agree with the city attorney. That's weird. Cedric said, postponing hearings happen all the time. It happens to our residents. They get bumped and bumped and bumped. So that's what I'm asking you to do tonight is to bump this until you have a full picture of the impact to our downtown that this is going to have.
Peggy Fisher.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. Thank you for your service on this board and for the attention to all the details that were presented to you, all 400 plus pages. I certainly can see that you all have done your work as volunteers. The presentations were outstanding. People who weren't at last night's meeting until 11 o'clock have taken their view of it and what they said. Yes, the city attorney was involved. The city attorney did come forth at the request of the city commission to give options. So let's talk about facts rather than hypothetical or pasting things on light poles around the city that aren't the truth. It's about facts, not about made up numbers. And I totally support this project. I think it is good for this city. And I grew up in Palm Beach County. I've lived here longer than most people who come and talk who moved here. I was born in Good Samaritan Hospital. I know what Lake Worth looked like when I was 10 years old. So you can't stand still in time. Time keeps moving forward. And if you stand still, it's going to move right past you. And we have to accept that our city is going to change as time goes by. And again, I totally support this project, and I appreciate you all accepting the negative, nasty, whatever comments may come your way, whether it's how you look on your face, which is nothing but polite. What I've seen from all of you has been nothing but polite, as well as staff and the presenters. Thank you.
Not sure I'm saying it, Baraka Albert. No. Followed by Elisa Sumner. Then after that, we'll have John Zerdy.
Sorry, this is last minute on my part. Elisa Sumner, 216 South K Street. Hi, Laura. I live close to town. To do any work on my house, be it roofing, fencing, new windows, new shutters, etc., I have to jump through a myriad of hoops to ensure that I'm staying within the architectural details of the period in which my house was built. I do not complain. I understand the rationale of wanting to keep this town charming, of respecting our history. Yet you are changing our zoning to allow for incongruous tall buildings. You are discussing destroying historical buildings so that you can make an even bigger concrete monstrosity of a garage that in actuality has still no proven benefit for this town. I understand the need to grow, but the hypocrisy here is very telling. Thank you.
Chair. John Zerdy.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it's going to be. My name is John Zerdy. I'm at 217 South Palm Way. Nice to see all you all this evening and everybody here. Great presentations. Also, William, I think that what we've seen, and we've been involved, I'm an architect contractor as well. We've seen a lot of times where it's very challenging in downtown areas. We've done a lot of historic preservation on projects that have been on the National Historic Register as well. To me, this project is really needed. It sets the pace of really what we want to do. I'm going to also be on the CRA board coming up now as well. So we will be in charge of helping to see what the solutions might be for this. One of the solutions that can happen, because it's most of the project buildings that are under potential demolition, if you're calling it, you could rebuild them to be just the same. That is an option to build, and it's actually a lot less expensive than trying to pick them up and move them and get rid of power lines all along the way. Probably can't even get them down the streets anyway, but you can make a deal, get them rebuilt. They're wood frame structures, pretty easy, a lot less than moving them and doing everything else. The masonry building, again, has been changed a lot anyway, so, and needs to have a presence on Lake Avenue, period. I think a great project like this is forbearing for our city. I'm looking forward to it happening. We will figure out a way to make that happen and make everybody that really is paying attention understand that there is benefits to this, as well as there's a creative solution. We will come up with it though. But thank you so much for everybody's presentations tonight.
Yeah. Sorry. Sure. Wes Blackman, followed by Alex Schultz.
Hello, good evening. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I just want to congratulate everyone who was part of the presentation tonight, the staff, the applicants, you sitting as a volunteer board. You play a very important role, and it's one that I played for a while. I was sitting in those chairs for a while, either for planning and zoning and historic preservation. And many times you're confronted with situations that are on the move, where a lot of money is involved, other people's money, other people's well-being in terms of how they feel about the community. That really is your purpose, is to kind of guard the heart of the city. And what we're seeing here, I think, and I watched the meeting last night. I was refreshed actually that there was discussion that was new this far along in the process, and there was some analytical approach being taken, and not just taken what is coming from the applicant. There was a recognition that something is up ahead. We have to be flexible. And I think the staff has created a condition related to those structures that allow you to be flexible, give you a 6-month window. And if relocation isn't possible, then what everyone doesn't want is a demolition. I've been involved in projects where I'm representing clients and a demolition has been denied, and trying to incorporate an older part of the structure into new construction, sometimes it doesn't work. And it ended up being a reconstruction, the particular one I'm talking about. So there has to be some flexibility. This is a large project. It will change the game in Lake Worth Beach, but really for the better. And we'll draw more people and have more reason for people to come here and spend their money, which we can capture. So thank you for your time this evening.
Alex Schultz and then Michelle Sylvester.
Good evening, Alex Schultz, 612 Second Avenue South on K Street. I unfortunately was at last night's meeting for 5 hours and so I'm really sort of worn out today. I've been in Lake Worth since December of 2008, so 16 years. And so during those 16 years, had the opportunity to watch the decline of First Avenue South progressively as the city acquired those homes, let them fall into disrepair, and then use that as a basis to tear them down. So initially, First Avenue South looked really great and historic, and now it looks like Putin's been here for a few months bombing the place out. And I specifically was involved in litigation back in 2019. I asked the CRA to continue leasing those homes to the residents as a way of maintaining them. They said no. So many of those places fell in disrepair. Then they used that disrepair as a basis to get them torn down. Same thing happened with the Havana hideout. Basically, what it is, they're calling it the cultural campus. I call it the Hannibal Lecter cultural cannibalization campus, because that whole area has been cannibalized. All these historic structures have been torn down as a result of CRA and city neglect. It was planned all along. You hear the stuff being talked back then. Being at the commission meeting last night, the microphone talk, you could hear, oh, we can save all these millions by tearing the places down. So they were really enthused about that. And what we're creating here, you heard of the Iron Curtain, we got the WMOTA wall. With that garage and with that huge glass building, you're creating a wall between the old downtown and old Lucerne. You're eliminating that flow of an historic town. Go to Sunday Village in Delray Beach if you want to see really great historic development. I spend at least a Saturday evening there a month. I've sent the commissioners my pictures on Saturday, and great, that's development. And yeah, WMOTA, you represent WMOTA? Yeah, you never answer my questions. I'm gonna have to sue to get them answered. I'm an attorney.
Michelle Sylvester.
Hi, Michelle Sylvester, 525 Lake Avenue. Part owner of Paws on the Avenue. We've been there 25 years as an anchor in downtown Lake Worth, and we are thrilled to have WMOTA on our horizon. This is going to be a refresh for our city. It's going to enhance our job opportunities for our community. We have been fallen behind, and other communities have picked up the ball and taken our prosperity from us. It's now time for us to collect this and claim it for ourselves. The structure on L Street is a dilapidated, has been a drug den, has had a fire next door, and has had vagrants and homeless inhabitants. It also has a mold problem. So when you pick that building up and take it someplace else for remediation, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So whether it can happen within the block and a half that it's in the current plan, that remains to be seen. There was a 6-month window. I understand the concern to save these buildings, but we cannot save these buildings from our future progress. We have to step forward. We are very excited about this project. We do need a bigger parking garage. We have problems with parking every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Our parking that we pay for is cannibalized by other businesses, and that's not fair for our business. I think accentuating the arts and wrapping around the mid-century style fits totally within our community. And I really applaud all the effort from staff and from you all and from the WMOTA people for bringing this project to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now for the comments that have been presented to be read into the record.
Matt Podzinski. The private craft collection, I'm sorry, 30 South J Street, Apartment 5. This private craft collection will contribute nothing to Lake Worth Beach culture and only serve as an eyesore to fans of historic Florida. You cannot manufacture and import an art collective, especially using local tax dollars today. Ben Williams, I think that's correct. I'm just voting against this. I don't think it's fair for people to come down here and move around places that have been in downtown Lake Worth for years. It's 226 South L. Sorry. Ashley Torres, 226 South L. I don't agree taking places out that have been there. It should be done for public parking, regulated parking either. Tammy Rich, 416 11th Avenue North. The historic district denied my permit for a metal roof, and you are going to allow them to demolish? Hypocrisy. Vincent Bamball, 28.
Yeah.
Sorry. 28 something circle. It will do nothing for me, just okay, it's just going to do nothing for the city during the year of construction. John Faust, 511 Lake Ave. Please recommend approval. Please move this project forward. Lauren Taylor, 277 South M Street. 222. Okay. South M Street. I don't want to speak. I'm just against the new development and all it contains. And then emails that we did receive prior to the meeting. We have Kim Lingle, 1120 North Palmway. Does not support the development of any private structures that do not allow for or provide parking of at least 20% above and beyond the capacity of the development structure. Due to the unavailability of low-income housing, there are oftentimes 4 to 6 people, if not more, in a 2-bedroom apartment. This makes parking unbearable and too much of a burden for our downtown. The next one comes from Mara Hennessy, 1031 North M Street. Massive retail unit building is 38% bigger than the Lucerne and located right next to the Lucerne. Can we keep the museum and allow him to build the rental units over on Dixie Highway? This project is oversized for our downtown. And Brian Forbes from 1031 North M is against the massive development and the lack of it going to the public for a vote to decide on a referendum. Corey Metzler, 222 North L Street. The Lake Worth Beach Sustainability Department has put together an impressive package with a recommendation for the Historical Resources Review Board to vote to approve the measure with conditions. I challenge their conclusion and hope you see how the Wiener-Wamoda project does not represent the vision of the Lake Worth Comprehensive Plan. Specifically, the land use goal 1.3-3, where the character of the city is not enhanced by a 136,000 square foot, 110 unit rental apartment building. The fact that the Wiener building is on the same street, L Street, as the 80 unit Lucerne equals just under 200 units in 2 blocks. Please consider the scale of both the Lucerne and Wiener apartment building within 2 blocks and with the Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program allowances and other mixed use plan development concessions. The Wiener apartments are 38% larger than the Lucerne. You have the city strategic plan to consider, and no pillars 2 and 4 are threatened with a loss of character, additional noise, pollution, traffic, crime, and safety concerns. Think of the 200 plus cars southbound on North L Street from Publix or 10th or 6th Avenue twice a day. M Street will also be congested and it's unsafe for vehicular and pedestrian traffic. The Wiener apartment building would be better suited on Dixie Highway. The museum would be fine on its own. Oops. Your time and talents in reviewing this extensive plan is appreciated. Your vote to disapprove the proposed Wiener-Wamoda is a civic duty to uphold the comprehensive plan and charm of Lake Worth Beach. Thank you for your consideration. We have Eric Ray, 1125 North J Street. Over 100 rental units downtown is a nail in the coffin of our charming town. Nancy Malik, 1125 North J. Florida land use, the future land use 1.3-3, et cetera. We do not need this Trojan horse so-called museum. Jenny Hollister, 331 South K Street. Same thing, the land use 1.3-3. This is a horrible development. Please do not approve. Eric Glickman, 1030 North M Street. Our downtown is charming. If Mr. Weiner would like to build a museum, that's fine. If he wants to build apartments, that's fine. But do not give him millions of dollars to do that. He will make plenty of money in the long run. And Penny Corsell, 1232 Lake Geneva Drive. Lake Worth Beach needs smart development. This is not smart development. Having that many units downtown and having the CRA give that much money, this is not a good idea. Sandra Isabel from 412 South L Street. She's lived in Lake Worth for over 30 years, and all those years, this is the worst development project I have ever seen. We have Maggie Lesnick. This is from an unincorporated area, 1704 Crest Road. Dear members of the board, the proposed Wamota development is a ridiculously horrible proposal for Lake Worth Beach, its residents and visitors. There are absolutely no guarantees from the developer that state the development will actually be a museum, host events for the community, or live up to any empty promises made by the developer to gain support. It will increase traffic and takes away parking despite the empty promises made by the developer. It allows a reduction by parking of 70 spaces by using a controversial shared parking provision that the development is not sharing their parking. This is unacceptable and absolutely ridiculous. It allows 66 public downtown spaces to count toward their requirements, specifically 21 on side streets, 45 from a proposed parking garage that would force paid parking in downtown Lake Worth Beach. As ridiculous as it is, I've been told that the proposed parking garage was voted down, so this proposed provision is no longer valid. It allows 156 bike racks to be counted as 24 spaces. This is unacceptable and absolutely ridiculous. The proposed development would be built on top of 48 existing free parking spaces. This is unacceptable and absolutely ridiculous. It will cost Lake Worth Beach and its residents millions of dollars with no benefit to Lake Worth Beach, its residents and visitors. All the benefit will go to the developer, while all of the costs will go to Lake Worth Beach, its residents and visitors. This is unacceptable. Board responsibility is to the historic district, not a developer. The only acceptable vote by Hrpb this evening is a unanimous vote against the development. And the last one was Deborah Roberts, who we heard from already. Thank you. Right, so there is the text again for the rezoning motion.
I move to recommend approval of ordinance number 2025-07 for the proposed zoning map amendment based on the data and analysis in the staff report and the testimony at the public hearing.
I have a recommendation. Can I get a second? I have a second from Nadine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Before we get to the motions on the plan development, we do want to add that condition that we talked about.
Yes.
The flex space parking to be confirmed, the number of spaces prior to city commission.
Nadine wrote that down. I can't make emotions.
Okay. I move to recommend approval with conditions of ordinance 2025-06, commonly referred to as the Wamota Plan Development based on
the competent and substantial evidence provided in the staff report and in the testimony at the public hearing. Do you need me to add something on that, Annie?
Mind just adding, recommend approval with conditions as amended during the discussion of the item.
Recommended approval with conditions as discussed
This evening.
this evening.
Which conditions are those?
That's
Those
regarding the
specifically-
6 months. Do you want to repeat
No,
that?
no,
No?
This
Oh,
is the
okay.
parking.
This is
Oh, for the
the
parking.
condition about that flex space parking that we need to confirm the exact number of additional spaces. Like I said, we had estimated it'd be maybe 3 to 5 additional spaces in the in lieu provision for that flex space parking.
Okay, not the conditions about the
Correct.
demolition.
This is not the relocation condition.
Right.
So I have a motion. Could I get a second, please? Second. Second by Mr. DeVoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we are getting to the COA relocation. The text we have here is motion to approve as amended with, again, those highlighted conditions.
Condition
Talking
3.5.
about relocation and potential demolition. As we mentioned, the other option is to move to table this for a period of a maximum of 6 months.
We'll table it.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
There was something mentioned, I see he's gone now, the gentleman that was right there, but he mentioned something where this came up before. I think it was,
2019.
yeah, and,
Talking about Mr. Waters.
Yeah.
right, Mr. Waters, yeah. So Annie, can you just maybe shed some light on that? I don't know if you're knowledgeable about that.
Sure. So the quickest way that I can summarize it is the L&M properties as a whole. So that included 17 South M and 26 South L Street, as well as, I believe it was 10 other structures, went to the Hrpb in 2019 and got a COA for relocation and demolition. 3 of the structures were straight demolition. The other 7 had conditions like these to make all possible attempts to relocate the structures and demolition if relocation was not feasible. Similar to this one, the demolition timeline for those was conditioned to require new construction COAs. At that time, no specific development was proposed, unlike tonight, and issuance of the building permits for that new construction. So it would be directly mirroring the conditions that are in the amended relocation COA proposal. That's really where that was modeled off of.
Right. And so realistically, that has a time limit on it.
Correct. I mean, any COA has a standard expiration date of 1 year, which is why the 2019 COA is super expired.
Yeah.
But so the 6 month timeline that we were talking about was tied to the alternative motion option of tabling this COA and bringing it back within 6 months. The timing condition with this is tied to the new construction building permit approval.
Right, which is
a ways away. Sorry.
Thank you, Renee Miller. Per our critical path that we are bound by in our development agreement, from the point in which we get our entitlements, we have 8 months to submit 8 months to obtain building permit. So if we are successful in moving through the August hearings with the city commission, we have 8 months from that point to obtain our building permits. We hope it won't take us that long, but that is our deadline in our contractual obligation.
okay. So there's your time limit.
Go ahead. But we approved that. But she made a very interesting point about those 3 structures. And it's unfortunately, the CRA started coming. And those structures, see, once you go down the line of demolition, these historical then you know, we're journeying down an avenue that we don't want to go down. So if it's possible, we can get your permit and the three structures be moved someplace else in the CRA, then that'd be nice. That's like a compromise win-win scenario.
Yes, but there has to be a time limit on a point where you say we've exhausted our avenues and the only alternative would be demolition. Otherwise, you're
The
holding.
burden of proof should go to the CRA, and they have a lot of land around. They got Lucerne, they have a lot of property. They could find a location. And whatever that cost is, that's on them.
Let's hear a motion.
Yeah, but is it economically feasible? Does it make sense? We've talked about demolition before. Nobody wants to demolish a historic property, but we have to look at what type of property it is. Does it really have mold? Can it be moved?
You know,
I mean, those are things.
About mold, we say a lot of things.
Yeah.
We don't have that information in front of us.
Right, but we addressed those
We addressed that in 2019.
Those properties in 2019.
That's what my point was. We addressed this in 2019 and made a decision that
2019
it
was a long
could
time
be.
than that.
I know, but I mean, if anything, things should have changed.
She made an interesting point.
Oh, sure she did. And that's why we're here to make a motion. You could, go with it or not, or someone needs to get creative.
Go ahead.
I'm not prepared to vote to approve it with such uncertainty about these structures. I would be more inclined to ask to table this. Until we get some more information about an actual plan, not just we're just gonna tear them down.
I think that's we don't want it to be it's not a deal breaker. But think about it, we don't want to get to a deal breaker, but we don't want to hold them up. We want that permit. So
that's why I'm saying there is a time limit on this.
I think Ms. Miller said that it's not going to hold up the process if we table the consideration for those three structures. Is that correct, Ms. Miller?
And two structures, I think, that are concerning. I think the third one is.
I think here's the challenge. I think that, and I'm not the city manager, so I shouldn't be speaking on behalf of the city, but my understanding is that the city commission is just trying to seek more time to figure out options. And for us as the developer, it is not opportune for us to table something and then have to go through the process to come back again. And there is a potential at that point in time for us to be at the same point 6 months from now. And then at that point, then it becomes a true issue for us, as we will be outside of our development agreement and potentially in breach, and it puts the project in. So if you're asking me whether or not it's better to allow the city commission more flexibility today, that would be our position. But ultimately, it's certainly up to this board, because our fear is that if we kick the can down the road potentially and not allow the commission the flexibility to take a beat, evaluate the public infrastructure need and the costs associated with that and where they want to move it or not, and we kick it down the road and we're back here in 6 months, then we kick it down again, then we are in a very difficult territory.
Yeah, Annie, can you go back to what you guys are recommending? Okay.
We have to remember, it is a recommendation.
Yeah.
Commission.
I'm ready to make a proposal. Can we go to the proposal side? I move to approve HRPB project number 25-0010000.
Come on.
068 as amended with staff recommended conditions, which includes what you said, right, Annie? Okay. For a certificate of appropriateness for relocation of 3 structures at 17 South M Street and 26 South L Street, based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
I have a motion. Do I have a second, please?
Yes, I second.
Before you vote, I just want to make sure, because you made a comment that this is just a recommendation. This is a final.
Right on the top.
This is a final decision for this board.
Yes.
The board is the final decision maker on certificates of.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
Just want to make sure.
No, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Nadine seconded.
Yes, second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. Okay, sorry. Any more staff changes? Oh, we have two more.
We
I
have
thought it was three. I'm
three more
sorry.
motions, demolition and two new constructions.
Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize again. It's 8:30.
So next up, we have demolition of 501 Lake Avenue.
Big part?
Demolition of 501 Lake Avenue is the next motion up.
Okay,
This is up there.
that's the.
Okay, I move to approve HRPB project number 25-001-00149 with staff recommended conditions for the demolition of the existing structure at 501 Lake Avenue based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Against? All right, passes unanimously.
Okay, so this is the museum new construction COA.
I move to approve HRPB project number 25-001-00150 with staff recommended conditions for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a museum building at 501-509 Lake Avenue based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Mr. DeVoe. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Passes unanimously.
Last one, residential new construction COA.
Anybody?
I move to approve HRPB project number 25-001-00151 with staff recommended conditions for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a multifamily residential building at 13-23 South M Street and 16-32 South L Street based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
A motion. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're good. Passes unanimously. What if we want that?
Thank you. You know, I want to say something a minute.
Uh-oh.
You're doing so well, too.
You know, I feel, you got to feel for the people that you don't get your way all the time. It's the nays. But I've been here over 70 years. I've seen the good and I've seen the bad. I've waited for our city to turn the table. I learned out of that 70 years, you don't get what you want all the time. But progress is painful. It really is. I've watched Delray, Boca, West Palm. I watch them all grow. I've had conversation with Mr. Waters about annexation. We have to, maybe this will wake us up and turn the page, because we have to turn the page. We have to grow. If we don't, imagine this. You have a child. If you don't see your child have progress, you have deep concerns. Same thing with your city. Think about it. If you don't see your child make that progress, then that's the next step. You know you have problems. Good night.
Thank you.
Chairman, I wanted to thank you and the board members for the time you put in on probably the most complicated development application I've seen, and I've been working in the field of planning and preservation, urban design almost 40 years. I also want to commend the CRA and WMOTA for working very collaboratively with staff over, it's actually more than a year. They have taken a lot of criticism from staff on trying to make this project as good as it can be for Lake Worth Beach. And I also want to commend our staff. You have an amazing historic preservation staff. For a community this small, you are so fortunate to have three great people who are really committed to the future of the city and its unique charm. And so we're really proud that you have made these decisions tonight. And we will look forward to presenting this to the City Commission in August.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes, it did frighten me, 468 pages in my.
Well, it's going to be a little longer when it goes to the commission.
We got through it though. Is that it? We're good?
We're good.
Department reports or?
Excuse me. You have a few more comments? Oh. Oh, we have to do that. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to say something?
Non-agenda items.
Non-agenda items. You're welcome, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank Moda, staff, board, everybody.